Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Gaming. Battlefield 5 is due for an update next week that addresses the soldier invisibility bug, stability on PlayStation 4, the PO8 carbine specialization bug, and more. The next set of elite soldiers as well will be included with the update. DICE will also be giving out more details regarding the status of Al Sundan and Merida. Despite the delays with Al Sundan getting its full-scale conquest modes, Merida should be on track for release before the end of the month as originally planned. Rush returned to Battlefield 5 once again as a limited time mode this week. This time around, DICE have made significant changes to the layouts of the play area on all three of the playable maps, Narvik, Devastation, and Twisted Steel. I did a full video covering what's new with Rush this time around and my opinions on it, so be sure to check that out. Hopefully next week is a big win for Battlefield 5 with the upcoming patch. Many players are frustrated with the state of the game and how long it's taken to get this game back on track, and this next patch is going to be a very important one to prove that DICE can still fix their game. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds' next update is looking like a massive improvement to the game. It includes a total remaster of its original map, Erangel. Pretty much every inch of the map has received a facelift. Several big areas like Military Base, Milta Power, and Prison were heavily reworked with the new buildings, layouts, and more. The update also teases a storyline for PUBG that honestly looks interesting, especially for a Battle Royale title. The update is currently available on the game's test server. Season 4 is scheduled to launch on the 24th, so it's likely the update will be live on public servers then. Since Fortnite and Apex Legends have virtually dominated the Battle Royale scene in the first half of the year, PUBG has been quietly getting better and better. That said, it still has a ways to go. Overall performance is improved, but I still get FPS drops in certain areas and gunfights. The updated map looks better, but it's still not on par with something like Firestorm. All that said, if you're a fan of PUBG, there's nothing not to look forward to in this new update. Shield operators in Rainbow Six Siege are getting a pretty big nerf. An update currently on the game's public test servers makes two significant changes to Recruit, Blitz, Fuse, and Montaigne. Hipfire accuracy for them has been nerfed. Their melee shield attack will also only down enemies instead of killing them outright. Shields in Siege have been a point of contention for players since the launch of the game. They have plenty of counters, but they can also be infuriating to deal with for less experienced players. Siege's standalone PvE game, Quarantine, finally has a release window. The game picks up where the original Outbreak PvE event left off, pitting players against infected AI enemies. It's currently targeting a release date before April 2020. A patch for Apex Legends was released to address a handful of new bugs that popped up with the launch of Season 2. An exploit for the Havoc weapon that let players fire it in full auto with no charge time was patched. Other things like crashes and network issues were also addressed. The game's developers are also working on a better way of handling cheaters. Eventually, cheaters in Apex will be forced to play exclusively against each other before ultimately getting banned. This is intended to help cut down on false positives, while also giving the devs more time to reverse engineer cheats without letting cheaters run unchecked. Several other multiplayer titles have similar systems in place. Rage 2 is finally getting some highly requested improvements. The game's often unnecessary ARC tutorials will finally be skippable. 3 new game modes, Iron Man, Ultra Nightmare, and New Game Plus are being added to extend the replayability of the game's campaign. A new flashlight item is also being added. The update goes live on July 25th. In addition to the new stuff, there's also a bunch of bug fixes. Hardcore Milsim shooter Squad finally has tutorials nearly 4 years after release. The game is praised for its realism and more approachable design compared to more complicated milsims like Arma, but it still has a massive learning curve that puts many players off before they ever get a chance to really sink their teeth into the game. Currently, there are only 2 tutorials, one focused on basic infantry combat and one covering deploying structures in the field. The same update that adds these tutorials also implemented some pretty nice improvements to the performance. If you've been on the fence about Squad, or maybe you're looking to dive into some of the milsim more hardcore shooters, now is as good a time as any to try it out. With the last of our patch-related news, things aren't so great for Fallout 76's latest patch. Players are up in arms over a swath of new bugs introduced with the update. It makes big balance changes to the game's Battle Royale mode, updates the new game experience to be less overwhelming, and makes some adjustments to the game's premium currency. But the bugs it's introduced are pretty severe. Issues with the legendary loot not dropping from enemies have cropped up. There are now areas on the map that will outright kill players the moment they step foot in them for no apparent reason. Updates were also made to the power armor system that supposedly made pieces of the armor vanish from some players. Fallout 76 had a rough time since before it even launched. The devs have certainly done a lot to improve the game, but clearly it's a long way from being the multiplayer Fallout experience it's promised to be. Another test session for Halo Reach's PC port is scheduled for later this month. Unlike the first session earlier this month, which was focused on single-player mission Tip of the Spear, this one will test the game's co-op mode Firefight. Testing will likely be limited to a very small selection of players, so don't expect to get in even if you've signed up. That said, with it being a co-op test, it's likely more people will be invited than before simply to ensure a healthier player population. A multiplayer technical test for Gears 5 is currently live for Xbox and PC. Customers that pre-order the game or have the Xbox Game Pass can download the test and try it out until the 22nd. Another testing session starts up on the 26th. It includes 3 modes: Arcade, Escalation, and King of the Hill across 2 different maps, District and Training Grounds. There's also a tutorial mode. PC has overtaken PlayStation and Xbox as Ubisoft's most profitable platform. PC sales accounted for 34% of their first quarter earnings, ahead of the PlayStation 4 at 31% and Xbox at 18%. Interestingly, their mobile revenue, typically a cash cow for many publishers, only makes up 7% of Ubisoft's earnings. Ubisoft are launching Uplay Plus later this year, which is a monthly subscription service that gives customers access to basically every major title on the platform. Ghost Recon Wildlands has gotten its final update. Called Mercenaries, it adds an 8-player PvP/PvE free-for-all mode that's basically a pseudo-battle royale. Players race to activate transmitters that reveal the location of a helicopter waiting to extract you. Players loot for gear to fight both the 7 other players in the map as well as AI soldiers. Once a player activates 3 transmitters, the helicopter flies in to extract players, then make it aboard. Of course, it has the classic shrinking circle, but it also has respawns. Cyberpunk 2077 will have a hardcore mode that removes the game's user interface. This is a big change from the developer's prior titles, which only offered difficulty ranges that didn't directly affect HUD elements. In addition to hardcore mode, Cyberpunk will also feature a more casual story mode option for people that just want to experience the game's story and world. That said, it's unclear if this is a true accessibility mode or just very easy. An updated Nintendo Switch has officially launched. It has extended battery life over the original model, but makes no other major changes. It's likely the console's analog sticks and internal hardware have been improved, but the end result should be hardware that performs identically to the original. It's also likely that the updated Switch uses a refreshed CPU that addresses exploits that were possible in the original hardware. Overwatch is testing out a new matchmaking system that has players pick their hero before looking for a match. Called Role Queue, this system is intended to balance out the game's meta, which generally favors specific combinations of heroes. The GOATS meta, which is when teams run 3 tanks and all 3 healers, became the dominant meta for Overwatch earlier this year. Since then, Blizzard have been unable to shake this meta from the game. Role Queue works as an auto-balancer of sorts. Players that pick a role are then matched with players who pick different roles, ensuring that teams are not totally stacked with 1 or 2 sets of roles. Role Queue is scheduled to go live around September 1st, but will be available on the game's public test servers for 2 weeks prior to the launch. In our final story this week, Destiny 2 is getting a remastered moon level from the first game. It's part of an expansion coming to the game called Shadowkeep. Bungie are promising a total remaster of the original level complete with new locations and about double the space to explore. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if there's any articles you think we missed or you found interesting from this week. And I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.